welcome to episode 54 of Scar Bears. I'm Chris DT Gordon. As always, it is a blessing to have you here with me today. And as always, with me as well, in a technological sense, is our Nate and Britton Barron. If you want them to work their post-production magic on your projects, just reach out to them at Nate Barron. Well, folks, things are going pretty well and on my end. It's been a blessing to be able to talk with people about my message. And if you know someone or maybe even someone in the media who would really like to hear my message to share with their audience, please reach out to me. You can do that at chrisdtgordon.com or find me at linktr.ee/Chris DT Gordon. You'll find all my different websites there. I'd love to hear from you. Well, today I have a very special guest. It's my new friend, Joe Petroski. We met during a week-long boot camp to get us on TV, and we're working on getting ourselves known. And so, Joe, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. I'm down here in Delray Beach, Florida, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous day today.
Excellent. Good to hear. And so not only were we involved in this week-long boot camp, Joe, but we also have something else in common. We have dealt with serious illnesses in our lives, but then you also have some pretty traumatic childhood experiences that have shaped you into the person you are today. Do you mind sharing those experiences?
Yeah, actually, the very first memory that I have is being yanked up off the floor by my arm and being hit by my father. And so I was a very young boy, I'm guessing 3.5 or 4 years old. And we suffered abuse at home. My dad would beat us. They called it spankings, but you don't take a man that is a big man with a board on a child's ass and call that a spanking. He would do that until he lost his wind. And I actually had an older brother, but I couldn't handle watching him cry. And so I learned that if I acted up when we were going downstairs to get beaten, I would get hit first. And I learned that when my dad would exhale his second breath, if I would start to fake cry, he would give up after another 6 or 9 hits, and he would be so exhausted that my brother would probably only get 9 to 12 hits. And so we grew up with a lot of abuse, a lot of screaming. We were told we were never good enough. How come we couldn't be like other people? It was very severe. And then I went on to a Catholic school and got a lot of it there as well.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that, but obviously you made it through. Was it ever discovered what caused your father's anger or his issues that he would share them with you?
My father, he had said one time, he says, if I can go an entire day without speaking, it's a very good day. So my dad doesn't talk. He's a very clammed up man. And I've tried to talk with him numerous times, numerous ways, and he will have none of it. One time he said, I've taken my thumb out of my mouth. It's time for you to take your thumb out of your mouth. And so he's got no willingness to discuss it. Yeah. So I lost the thought. What was the question?
No, I asked you, if there was any reason, did your father ever disclose, or was it ever discovered what caused his issues that he would take it out on you and your brother?
Well, my aunt, I talked with her quite often, and my aunt had said that my grandma was the disciplinarian in their house, and she had actually had the hired man make a piece of wood that they used to close the grain bin in the grain silo. And because grandma really preferred that, but when the grain was harvested, she couldn't use it. And so she asked the hired man to make a replica of that, and she paddled the kids with that. And so my grandma was a very angry person as well. And my grandpa was very quiet and distant. And so my dad grew up with that. He went to seminary and he was going to be a priest. I don't know what happened there. He dropped out of the seminary, or he graduated, but he didn't become a priest. And so he never talked about things, but he was definitely a rageaholic. And when he would rage upon us, then life would get better at home. And so things got, he, was nicer to my mom. Things got different, but it was difficult to live with the rage. It was something I never knew when I was going to be okay. And if the door opened, I would either hide or I would sit as still as I possibly could, so my dad would hopefully walk by.
Oh my goodness, that's a horrible way to grow up. And so, besides the physical scars that you had, as you grew and you progressed through life, how did that affect you in your personal relationships and your dealings with, just ordinary situations?
Well, in some ways it was good because I was tenacious as heck. And my brother was 2 years older than me, and we played hockey and stuff like that. But my parents weren't about to spend the time to take me to the little kids' hockey practice and my brother to the big kids' hockey practice. And so I went too early to play with the big boys. And as a result, they were anywhere from 2 to 4 years older than me. And so they would knock me around a lot. And so I learned how to get tough really quick. And I had a lot of anger and I would take it out. And so it was unfortunate because most people saw me as a very angry person. I didn't get in fights. I didn't go after them, but kids would pick on me because they knew that I wouldn't fight back. Because if I did fight back and my dad found out, oh my God, I couldn't even, my dad had made it very, very clear to us that if we got in trouble, when we would get home, it'd be 10 times worse. So the kids would pick on me until I finally pop. Well, when I finally popped, I never lost a fight. And I carried that, but it was very lonely. It was very lonely. I didn't know how socially I was completely inept because I was told every single day that there was something wrong with me. I was told every single day that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't right enough. I wasn't like other kids. And so I learned that I was different and I was odd. Well, and on top of that, I didn't know it at the time, but I was highly empathic and also intuitive or psychic. And so things would bother me about people. And I ended up being right a lot of times, but people didn't, it wasn't good to shy away from people or be quiet and that kind of stuff. So it was very, very difficult. When I got into adulthood, relationships were, I did the best I could, and I actually did have some real good friendships, a lot of good guy friends, women relationships. I would always tend to leave them before they could leave me, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I got into a very dysfunctional marriage. It was not a good fit from the start, and then it went on.
Going back to what you said about being an empath, that must have been the reason why you were so in tune to your brother's pain and his crying that you would make the choices as a young child that you did.
Yeah. I didn't know it at the time. And, unfortunately, when I grew up, I'm sitting there thinking that my brother's a puss, that he's, how come he can't handle this? And it's like, well, he was a normal kid. I was the one that was abnormal. I was the one that was, could take that, and I didn't know it, but I disassociated from myself and I actually left my body. And so I was present, but I could handle these long beatings, where normal people wouldn't have.
Wow. That's, yeah, I like to think of superheroes as being, extraordinary, but, to be able to do that and also to put yourself in that situation as a young child to shield your brother from that pain, that is superhuman in itself. And, again, while my heart cries for you that you had to deal with that, I commend you on your bravery and, just the presence of mind that you had. But moving forward, when so you mentioned that you had an unsuccessful marriage. At what point did you start to work towards those, as I talked about in our pre-recorded discussion, are the 3 W's?
Oh, okay, sure. Well, the wisdom, wellness, and wealth. Yeah, what happened is in my 30s, I contracted a very unusual illness, and I was extraordinarily ill. I would get migraines that would last for 5 to 7 days. What would happen is when I would get sick, I would lose my vision. And so, for example, I'd never be able to tell you that you kind of, that there's an A and a G behind you, or that you kind of have those Swedish snowflakes on your sweater. I'd never be able to tell you that. I probably wouldn't even be able to say that you were a human being in front of me. Because I hadn't seen you before today.
Some people might agree with you as well. So
yeah, well, it's what was happening is all of a sudden I realized it's like, okay, I'm on the road and there's a big gray thing in front of me. I think that might be a truck, but I couldn't tell you. And so I had to give up driving, all these different things, and I became extraordinarily ill. Worked with the doctors for 6.5 years. During that time, they put me on supplemental oxygen so I wouldn't get nearly as sick, but it wasn't working. And after that time period, they sent me home to die. They said, Joe, we have one more treatment that we can do, but if it doesn't work, it will kill you. And so we have to send you home. And they told me it was going to be a very prolonged, very difficult death. Not prolonged, I mean, very arduous death. And I kept on trying. I wasn't ready to give up. And I found this 35th generation Shaolin. And I went to him and his students. And after the second hour, I was off of the oxygen. I no longer needed the oxygen. And after the third, I was completely healthy. I was absolutely, completely, totally emaciated. I mean, you could see the cartilage in my nose. You could see the difference between the cartilage and the bone in my ribs. But I was healthy. I was absolutely healthy. And
so where was this? I'm sorry, where was this Shaolin?
He actually traveled to Minnesota. There was a man there that was there was a man there that was a martial arts expert. They had met each other. He had asked this Shaolin master to come to Minnesota to share some of his healing work, and so that's what had happened. And I just was lucky enough to be able to go see him, and then I ended up training with him, and I followed him around the country for 3.5 years. And I had a mentor in Minnesota that I met with at least 3 days a week, and we would train those 3 days a week. And so after 3.5 years of studying with him, I also during that time period had the blessings of sitting with some Native Americans in Wisconsin and learning a lot from them. But in 3.5 years, he gave me the master's certification in Chinese energetic healing. And so and then sitting with the natives, they were the ones that opened me up to feeling energy and everything, the trees, the rocks, the plants, the water. And that's when people that had passed away started to show up as well. And so I didn't know I had these intuitive gifts until that point, but that's when it was. And so in 2001, I started to do the healing work, incorporated in 2003. And so from 2003 to 2012, I've been doing healing, and the gifts that I'm able to help people completely eliminate pains and illnesses that nobody else can help them with. And the Mayo Clinic, when I used to live in Minnesota, they actually started to find out about me because I would have clients that would go down there, they would get their tests done and everything. They would come back to me, they'd go back down there and they wouldn't need the surgery. And they'd say, well, what did you do? Because they were curious, how come their carotid artery was clear? How come their kidneys were okay? And they said, well, I went and saw this, energy healer in St. Paul. And, after about the fourth or fifth one, they said, Joe? So they knew me, they knew about me. And in 2012, I had watched a movie called The Cure Is. And my clients had been asking me to coach them for a long time, like 7 years. And I just didn't feel qualified to do that. Because you got to remember, I started with the self-esteem about this big, and then I started to have these gifts and see things. And when I watched that movie, The Cure Is, the first time I did, I wrote for 10 pages feverishly, and then 8, and then 2, the third time that I watched it. And at the end of that, I had my first coaching program. And so in 2012, I started to coach people, and it's transformed a lot now. And I call it wisdom, wellness, and wealth, because we have to be wise to the laws that hold us back. People call them blocks. Blocks are, you can move and you can build and things. Laws are things that you get penalized for. And so your whole system is like, no, you can't break the law. You can't break the law. And so I help people understand the unconscious and subconscious laws that hold them back. And then once we see that, then what I do is I teach them ways to overcome those. And then I give them what I say is stronger than kryptonite, because kryptonite will hold Superman back. Well, we need something to be stronger than that to be able to go forward. So that's the wisdom. And the wellness is, as a healer, I help people as we go through this process, and they become physically better, emotionally better, and spiritually. And then the wealth is kind of like Napoleon Hill says when he talks about his mastermind program. He talks about the fact that he says, we don't go after the money. It just happens because we become better people, better relationships, and everything in the universe supports us. And so that's how the wisdom, wellness, and wealth.
Oh, it sounds like pretty comprehensive.
It is, as an intuitive, it's amazing. It's easy. It's quick, and everybody loves it. And every single person that's gone through it has had some kind of huge wealth issue happen. Bonuses, new jobs, getting a house for $35,000 less than the next bid. One of them that had just finished, she wanted literally a free car. And so a client of hers is too old to drive now. And so they gave her a $75,000 Jaguar SUV, and they give her gas money and money to wash the car every week. So it's amazing what happens. It's cool.
Yes, yeah. And so what plans you have going into the near future? I know that, like I said before, that we were part of the Be on TV boot camp. So are you going to incorporate those lessons into your future endeavors?
Yeah, my biggest thing that I've always wanted to do since this energy work saved my life back in 2001, I've wanted other people to know about this because I lost friends. I was sick for over 6.5 years. There's a great place in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, called Pathways, and Pathways has some support groups for people with chronic illness. And I was in that, and I watched friends die and things like that. And I've watched friends suffer from, fibromyalgia, lupus, MS, chronic fatigue, all these different things. Well, once I got better, I started to go back to my friends and say, hey, I think I can help you. And I was able to with a lot of them. And so what I want people to understand and to know is that this is one other option. This is one more option that is in your tool bag. It may work for you, and I tell people all the times, what I do is I always give them the opportunity to have a free consultation. I want them to call me up, ask me, get comfortable with it. And then they can decide if they want to work with me or not. And if we're not the right fit, I know other healers to send them to, because there's a lot of incredible, fabulous healers. People, when they think about energy healing, they think about Reiki or hands-on, and those are great, but there's other modalities that can completely, totally eliminate pains and issues and help people so they don't have to have surgeries,
So if someone wanted to reach out to you, where could they find you?
My website is profoundpower.net, and my email is really easy. It's profoundpowerjoe@gmail. And I let my clients name me. And so first it was pain eliminated, and then it was true freedom, because people said that my work gave them the truest sense of freedom. But then I met with somebody and she says, no, she goes, I feel the absolute most profound power. And this was somebody that made 7 figures. And so when she said that I gave her the biggest feeling or the most profound power feeling, I was like, okay, I'll keep that. So.
Well, that's always a good sign when your customers feel so strongly about your work that you decide to name it after something they said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So great. So if someone were to look for or to seek one a nugget of wisdom from you from this conversation, what would you say to help them through a situation?
The first thing, I guess, what I would say is really the power of I am, because the power of I am is it's all encompassing, and it's talked about in many, many cultures, not just the, Jewish or the Catholic religion, or Christian religion. The power of I am is talked about in many, many indigenous cultures. Many indigenous cultures know that they are the chosen ones. Okay. And so when we really connect to the I am, it's like that knowing creator really is for us, then that's incredibly powerful. And so if we say, I am successful, I'm wonderful, I'm beautiful, those kinds of things, great. If we say I'm, blah, 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 that kind of energy holds as well. But it's the biggest thing, I guess, is that life really, really is a team sport. And there's this saying now, it's like, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. And it's like, well, somebody that's been dealing with chronic pain, chronic illness, I mean, somebody like yourself, it's like, okay, pull yourself up. It's like, okay, you needed help too, And so what it is certainly, have that tenacious, feeling of doing it yourself, but allow yourself to actually get help too. Reach out to somebody, trust your own intuition, because life isn't supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be amazing. I mean, God sent us down here to enjoy it. I mean, just look around. Everything is so beautiful. And I tell people, it's like, look at a bird. I mean, or look at a dolphin, for example. What do they get to do? They're not bored. They're not sitting here saying, oh, life is so dull. They're out there tweeting away because the sunrise comes up. They're feeling the mist of the rain. They're feeling the sun, all of that kind of stuff. And so we should be able to feel that too.
I agree. And I have one more question for you, Joe. It's a question my audience always loves to learn the answer to. What is your favorite dinosaur?
That'd have to be the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Whatever.
Triceratops.
Okay, Triceratops. Yeah, Triceratops. Incredibly strong. And pretty much impervious to anything, and just goes about and does what he wants.
That sounds good. Well, Joe, it's been an honor and a pleasure to talk with you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your message with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
And so please reach out to Joe if you want to find out how he can help you in your various issues. And if you want to talk with me about my own message, please reach out to me at linktr.ee/Chris DT Gordon. You can find the book I helped publish, the Blue Talks Presents Business, Life, and the Universe, Volume 3. You can find my podcast, obviously, the YouTube channel, my speaking websites, and other things, as well as my online store, Chris DT Gordon's Tag and Pop Shop. All right. And also, please rate and review this. This helps me spread the word of Joe's message and other messages of trial and triumph. So please rate and review, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. All right. Thank you very much for joining me. Please have a great day. And remember to pass on perfection and go for greatness.